Hey, and welcome to Out of Hiding, a podcast where we focus on growing in God by seeking His truth. Hosted by Dan Morrow and David Flores. Miss Tracy, how are you doing?
I am. I'm fantastic. I'm doing really well.
So give us an introduction. Tell us who you are.
Who am I? Well, my name is Tracy. What do you want to know? I mean, I'm a single mom of, I have two kiddos. I have a 26-year-old son, and I have my 13-year-old daughter, Mercy. And it's just Mercy and I at the house. So we just hang out. I work full-time. Well, I have a couple of jobs, actually. So I work full-time with the Department of Family Protective Services in Athens. On the weekends, I work at a restaurant in Edgewood called On the Edge. Oh. I work first Monday weekend, and seasonally, I work at Yesterland Farm.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah. So when do you sleep?
When do you rest?
Not often.
Yeah.
So where are you from?
Originally, I'm from California. I've actually moved 27 different times in my lifetime. I'm 48. And I've lived in 27 different places. So,
lived in 27 different places. You're struggling to find something to talk about right now.
Yeah.
So why so many places?
Well, when I was younger, my dad moved around a lot. He was with IBM, and so they just got transferred, or he got transferred a lot, and so we moved around.
What was he, a computer guy?
He didn't. He was like more like on the. Well, I don't know what he did. He traveled a lot. He was gone a lot with work, so he would leave Monday mornings and come back Friday afternoons, and would be home on the weekends and stuff like that. So he traveled quite a bit, and his job just transferred him a lot. He didn't build computers or anything like that. He was more, I think, on the sales kind of side of it, if I'm not mistaken. So, but and then once my parents got divorced, we just kind of, my mom moved us out of from Idaho to North Carolina, and but yeah, I was originally in California. I've been in Arizona a couple of times, Colorado, Idaho, North Carolina, California like 3 different times.
When did your parents get divorced? How old were you?
I was about 13 when they got divorced.
And where were you living at that point in time?
In Idaho.
Where in
Idaho? Where at?
Boise.
Boise?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have family in Idaho? Or
no, my dad
just
got
you, and then they
there.
split. Then where'd you guys go from there?
My mom moved us out to a little town called Emmett, Idaho, which is just out of Boise. And we lived there for a little bit, and things didn't work out. So then we went to Monroe, North Carolina, where her, at the time, her husband, his family was from Monroe. So we had the option to go back to California or to go to North Carolina. And she chose North Carolina, sadly.
Sadly, yeah.
27 times. Do you actually remember all of those places?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Well, I mean, when I was little, I don't remember much of California. Because we moved from there, I was about 2.5 when we moved originally from California. We lived in Arizona, Tucson, for a short period of time, for about a year maybe. And I remember, like, the only thing I really remember about when we lived in Tucson was I almost drowned in the pool we had. I was riding my little tricycle around the pool, and I had like the little chairs stacked right there. I was playing Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and the chairs were the bears, and I was trying to escape and got a little too close to the edge and tumbled over. And my mom was inside with my little brother at the time.
Oh my gosh, that's scary.
Looked outside and didn't see me triking around anymore, and she was like, "What's going on?" So she went running outside, and I was in the bottom of the pool.
No.
So yeah.
How old were you?
I was about 3.
Oh gosh.
3-ish.
Man,
yeah.
that's like nightmare.
We would have brought in the dump trucks, filled in the pool next day.
Yeah.
So tell me about, with moving all the time, did you have like a hard time building connections and like having like good friends? Like, how was that?
When did you, one more thing, when did you stop moving?
In 2006. Well, I say 2015 actually, when I settled in Canton, and I've been in the house that Mercy and I live in now. I've been there since February of 2015, and that's the longest I've ever lived anywhere.
So I mean, just mathematically, you've probably moved almost once, at least a year, maybe twice a year.
Close to it, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy
But I've
smokes.
been in Texas. I moved to Texas in 2006, November of 2006. My son
So
and
back to David's question.
Mm-hmm.
How's that affected you?
It's affected me a lot. I don't have, like a lot of people will have, talk about high school friends and stuff like that. I don't have those. I don't have any long-term friends. Yeah, right, right, yeah. Well, especially the people I hung out
Save you some money.
right.
You know,
So
But
back to that, on that, did you like want in your mind? Did you say, "Hey, I want to keep Mercy locked in for somewhere and to like build friendships," and or is that just you just settled here and you like it? Is that on your heart to like keep her located in one spot for a little bit?
that's definitely been a goal, is to keep her stable. My son, he moved around a little bit, he was born in Arizona, and I got pregnant with him in North Carolina. I got pregnant in July. I left North Carolina in November, like just after Thanksgiving, and moved out to Arizona, and that's where he was born. And we moved out here. Well, we moved around a few times, anyways. But we landed here in November of 2006, and so I didn't like that for him either, because he didn't have any like stable, any stability until he moved out here. And he kind of had a rough go of things, but that has been a goal of mine, is to keep her stable as much as possible. And I mean, for myself too, I feel like at home here. This is the first time I've ever felt like at home anywhere. And like with church and coming to Radiant, like this is where it's at for me.
Speaking of church, I mean, I assume you weren't never connected to any of the churches, because you'd go, if you did go to church, I'm not sure. But if you did, you'd go in and then be moving the next year. So how was that?
We didn't, when I was younger, we didn't go to church really a whole lot. We went like occasionally, it's been, holidays, of course, but we were like in a Lutheran church. And I went through the whole acolyte thing where, I became the acolyte and lit the candles and all that stuff. And I hated it. I hated going to church. The only thing I liked about church was going to the midnight service on Christmas Eve. And I liked the candles and singing Silent Night at the end of the service. That's the only thing I liked about church. We didn't have like any kind of like relationship with God or Jesus or anything like that at home. Church was just kind of like a show, really, for I don't really know why we went, to be honest.
So it was like, check the box. We're in the group. It's a status. It's a cultural thing.
We're good people. Check.
Much like going to a play or being part of the whatever club or.
Yeah.
When did that change?
I started going. Well, I got baptized in a Baptist church. I had no idea what I was doing. My son was going to this church. The bus would come and pick him up to go to church. And one Sunday he wanted me to go with him, and so we did. And at the end of the service, they did the whole prayer thing. If you said the prayer, raise your hand. And I said the prayer, so I raised my hand. And the next thing I know, I had these people coming up to me, and the next thing I remember, I was like in the baptistry, like they gave, they had me change into a little choir robe and baptized me, and I was just like, what in the heck is going on?
Can I put my hand down again?
Right? So, that was like totally crazy. So I was baptized, I was baptized as a baby, of course, but it was the first time as an adult, and I had like no idea what I was doing. And but I moved out, when I moved out here, I started going to church with my mom. At the time, it was Driven Life Church, and started going to church out there. And in 2008, I got baptized like by choice for the first time, and that's when my relationship with Jesus really started to grow.
Awesome.
Is with Todd's story at Driven Life. So, so that's when I actually got baptized for the first time, like knowingly.
Okay.
08, you said?
Yeah, it was about 08.
Awesome. Awesome.
So, yeah.
How'd that change your life? Like when you made that decision for you the first time, knowing, this is why I'm doing it. This is what it's about, that kind of thing. Was there a transition? Was there a change that took place?
I feel like there was, that's when I started, getting into the Bible and, having a relationship, small groups and, serving with the kids ministry and stuff like that. I jumped all in, and, I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved having a relationship with Jesus. I loved, going to the church and the people there, and, it was transformative to me.
Yeah.
And, I really, I just really got all into it.
And so that was like the first time in your life you're like, I'm in this thing. Like, I'm giving my life, surrendering to Jesus, and
yes,
I'm going for it. That's great. So how was it with your family? Like as far as how was Mercy at the time? Is Mercy even around at that time?
No, Mercy wasn't born until 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So you had Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, and him and my mom actually got baptized together just, I think just after or just before I did, I can't remember, but like right around the same time frame, they got baptized together. So, yeah.
Awesome.
But, yeah.
So you got baptized, you got hooked up in '08. So how did you get here?
How did I get here? Well, I met Mercy's dad in 2010, and I ended up getting pregnant with her in 2011, in February of 2011. I met her dad. We actually met at church. We got together and had a date at the it used to be the Soda Jerk, where I guess Native Son is now.
Yeah.
But it's changed hands a lot of different times. But yeah, at the time it was a Soda Jerk, and for whatever reason, I hooked up with him, and later found out that he had a drug problem. I didn't find this out until the day after I had Mercy, actually.
Really?
Yes. I knew that he had some struggles, but I didn't know that he was like active in his addiction.
Yeah.
And so I had a C-section with her, and I had just come home from the hospital. Like the next day I was in the shower, and she started screaming. She was crying. My mom was in the kitchen, and he was in the bedroom with her, and he had been asleep, and she was just screaming, and I was like, yelling in the shower, somebody get the baby, and and nobody was getting the baby. So I like got out of the shower, and I like walked out, and he's there locked out, and I'm like, what in the what's going on here?
Yeah.
And he like kind of comes to, and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't hear her crying. And I was like, how do you not hear her crying? My mom comes in the room, what's going on in here? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to take a shower, the baby's screaming, whatever. And anyway, so I was like, what's going on? And he's like, I'm sorry, I don't feel well. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't feel well? Like you have the flu, or you're sick, or what? And he's like, well, I'm sick. And I'm like, well, do I need to go to the doctor or what? He's like, a doctor's not going to help me. I'm strung out. And I was like, what do you mean you're strung out? To be strung out, you have to be on drugs. And he's like, I have a problem. And so I have a newborn baby, and find out that the person I think that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with is a heroin addict.
Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh,
So-
heroin.
So anyways, yeah. And I don't know, like,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyways, yeah. So that was like pivotal. And,
So what did you do next?
well, I, tried to figure out like how to get him well.
Yeah.
I started looking up natural remedies, and, what do we do? And, do we go to treatment and all the things? And,
Is that your first exposure to a real addict, or have you been exposed to that before?
well, when I was younger, I was into like drinking and smoking pot and stuff like that. But that was my first exposure to like somebody with a drug addiction.
Like hardcore drug
yeah.
addiction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Me and my friends, we just partied and stuff, as young people do.
Yeah.
But I'd never even, seen heroin before. And so yeah, that was my first exposure to anything like that. So and it was wild. We've had a wild ride. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We were together from 2010.
And you were married?
No, we were never legally married.
Never legally married.
Never
okay.
legally.
Okay.
I've never been married to anybody. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so it, like I said, it was a hellacious ride, with him. I was like madly in love with him. Like the first time we had that dinner at the Soda Jerk, I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to marry this guy someday.
Yeah.
And, I was crazy about him. And then found out, that he had the drug problem. And, I was going to help him through it. I was going to love him through it. And it didn't really work out that way. So we, he was in and out of jail and in and out of treatments and stuff like that. He never went to like an actual rehab facility. He went, to like the Outcry in the Barrio and places like that. To try and get clean, but would never stick with it. And we were going to Stone Point Church at the time. We were in Wills Point, and we were going to Stone Point Church, and they said that they would pay for him to go to this crazy fancy rehab out in Dallas if he would just stick at the outcry in the barrio and just stick it out for whatever their time period was. If he stuck it out there, then they would pay for him to go to the rehab. And he didn't last the weekend.
Oh,
Wow.
And so anyways, then I got church hurt. Well, for the second time I got church hurt. The first time was with Driven Life. When they found out that I was pregnant with Mercy, they told me that it would be in my better interest to step down from my commitments, serving in the kids ministry, because we weren't married and we were living together and pregnant. So so anyways, so that really cut me. And so we stopped going to church there and kind of floundered for a little bit, didn't go to church anywhere. And it wasn't until after Mercy was born that we started going back to church, and that's where we found Stone Point. We did like church shopping for a little while, and went back to Stone Point, or not back to, but went to Stone Point. And we were there for a while, and then when he didn't follow through with his commitment there, they pretty much just kind of dropped us, like
But they offered to pay the whole rehab thing and all that kind of stuff. Wow.
Yeah, they were going to pay for it all.
Wow.
And so that didn't work out. And then
Is he still living with you at this time?
at that time he was. Right now he's in jail.
Yeah, I was talking about at that time. Like, y'all are still living together?
Oh,
like
yeah.
you're
Trying to make it work.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were trying to make it work. We and he would go through periods where he would do really well, and then he would slip back into it, and he'd do really well and slip back, and it was just back and forth, and then it was like in and out of jail and stuff like that, and getting tickets all the time. And
What were you doing? Were you getting frustrated? Were you just like, I don't care? Were you, I've had it with this dude? What was you? I mean, obviously that had to be hard.
Oh, it was horrible. I was determined that, I was determined to, like I said, I was going to love him through it. I was determined to make things work.
Why were you so determined? Just curious.
Because I didn't want Mercy to grow up without having a relationship with her father.
Yeah.
Whenever my parents got divorced, I stopped talking to my dad for a long time. And he had committed adultery and left us for another woman. And that just broke me.
Sure.
Like, that shattered me, because when I was little, I was daddy's little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that happened, I just it just wrecked my world. And after my parents got divorced, that's when I started dabbling with marijuana and stuff like that, and a little bit of alcohol and stuff. But yeah, so with Michael, I was just bound and determined, to have a family. That's all I've ever wanted, was to have a family, mom and dad.
No
and
matter
kids,
what, we're gonna make it.
We're gonna make it. And I was determined, but it didn't work out. It was finally, he had gone into a program called Safe P. He got in trouble and had to go back to jail, and was in the Safe P program and completed that and got out, and then decided that he was going to go move out to California and live on a marijuana farm and grow pot and just live the dream. And that was back in 2017. And that's when we separated, and he went his own way, and I was left to struggle it out with Merce.
Yeah.
I had I started working for the state. I got my job with the state in April of 2008. And in 2017, when he was in jail and everything, I went through this really bad depression and used up all my leave and ended up losing my job with the state. And that was in June of 2017. And he left, I think, just shortly after that, because he was still incarcerated. He left just shortly after that. And then I kind of floundered for a little while, getting, just part-time, just whatever I could do to find work.
Absolutely.
So anyways, he was supposed to help me out, with some money for the house payment and all of that, and left me high and dry. So I've looked into this program with my mortgage and was able to get on this subsidized thing where I only had to pay a small amount, and that they would push everything back at the end of the loan and all that good stuff. So I did that until I was able to get back on with the state, and that was in December of 19.
Okay.
So, and then when I was working with the state originally, I was doing food stamps, stuff like that. And then when I went back to the state, I was working an intake line to help people get services in the home, like elderly services and stuff like that. So I did that for a few years, and then I went to a different department. working the program support unit, and I worked there for a while.
So let me ask you this: during this time, you're going through the struggle. How are you in God? Are you leaning in Him, or are you just like, why is this happening to me?
After Michael left initially, I was done with God. Because I prayed so hard for so long for him to get clean and to stay clean. And I just felt like God just wasn't hearing me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
that hurt.
I was heartbroken.
Yeah.
I was absolutely
Yeah.
heartbroken. And then when he left, I just was like done. So I stopped. I wasn't going to church anywhere. I wasn't reading my Bible anymore. I wasn't doing any of it.
Just gave up.
Just totally gave up.
Okay.
And then went through a really, really big depression.
Dark.
I hated God. I hated everything.
Yeah.
Was having like suicidal thoughts. Was just like super depressed. It was bad.
How long did that last?
That lasted for a little while. I'd say maybe a couple of years. It wasn't until I think maybe around 2019, I started going back to church again, just before COVID and all of that. And Driven Life had split, and then like they went back together, not like the same people, but the stories were the pastors there, and they ended up leaving and moving out to Utah to open up a gymnastics studio. And then one of the senior pastors, Howard Burley, took over.
Yeah.
And then we started going back there for a little while, but my heart just wasn't in it.
Yeah.
I was still, just like over it. I'd come here a couple of times, and Michael was out. He'd come back, and he was coming to church with us. But I still just like, I was still just like, just faking it till I make it. I wasn't singing, I wasn't worshiping. I was just there, just like a body in the seat. And
What made you come back?
Yeah.
Did you just say, the life I'm living in depression is just not what I want, and you're like, hey, let's just start. I'm going to start somewhere, so I'm just going to start going to church. Was that the start of it?
Yeah, I had kind of, I guess, what you could call a come to Jesus meeting. Just me and God one day in my bedroom. I just broke down, and I remember I was just sitting in my bed, and I just started crying, and I started screaming and yelling at God, and just I guess praying out loud. But
Real.
just like it was just
Bearing it all.
just everything. It was
pouring
just
it out.
totally raw.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just started praying, and I was just like, God, I can't do this anymore. I need you. And just it was I think that was like November of 19 when that happened. And after that, I started going. I was still going to DLC, the new DLC, and then I got my job. Like, things just kind of started going back together. I got my job with the state back, and not the same job, but a different job. I started working with the state again. Things just kind of started falling into place, and that was like in December. And then like COVID hit, and everything hit the wall, and then I started coming back here right after COVID. It was May of 2020 when I started coming back here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I just started plugging in. I started serving with the kids, just coming to church every Sunday, just like, anything and everything. Like, if the doors were open, I was here.
Yeah.
So that's, Mercy and I started serving. Well, Mercy was too young at the time, but she was coming to church, and she was going to the kids ministry. And I remember doing the VBS that year with Michaela and Caleb.
Mm-hmm.
And just started plugging back in, and just still here. So, but yeah, it's been a rough few years. I just celebrated a year sober.
Did you?
A year sober.
Congratulations.
Heck yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
June 22nd. So yeah. So I'm, still a little baby, but I'm sober now. I gave up drugs, smoking marijuana, gave up drinking, and just started plugging into church, started plugging into AA, and that's what's been keeping me sober.
How has that transformed your life? Like, can you take me through a little bit of that? Like, a year sober, like, have you seen big things change, or maybe little things change? Like, what does that look like?
My whole life has changed.
Come on.
Like absolutely, completely, totally changed. June 22nd of 2024, I gave it back all to God. You know, I hit my knees and I can't do this anymore. You know, I can't keep on. I got into, on June 20th, my kiddos and I got into a big argument, and they left me. And my son took Mercy to my mom's house out in Irving. And for like a week, she wouldn't talk to me. And that wrecked me, because we're super tight. Like, my kids are my everything. My boy is, you know, he's just, they're my everything. They really are. And Mercy and I are like super tight. Like, we do everything together. We're always together. And when they left that night, and when she wouldn't talk to me, that just broke me. I was just devastated. And I'd like to say that night that we got into that argument was the last time I drank, but it wasn't.
Sure.
A couple of days, that happened on a Wednesday, and it wasn't until Saturday, that following Saturday, that I was like, I hadn't drank anymore. That Friday night, I got really drunk, and I was supposed to meet some friends at the water park, and I ended up getting drunk and passed out in the bed. And came to, it was like about 8:30 at night. I was like, what am I doing? I was in my bathing suit, like, because I was dressed and ready to go. I was in my bathing suit, and I woke up, and I was just like, you know, from being passed out. And I was like, man, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, this is so stupid. And it was, you know, the next morning I woke up, and that's when I started praying, and I was just like, God, help me.
Yeah.
Like, just take this from me. And he did. You know, I haven't had a drink. I haven't, you know, wanted to have a drink or smoke since then. I went to my first AA meeting it was a Tuesday night, and I was coming through Edgewood. I was coming back from Greenville, actually, and I was coming through Edgewood, and the restaurant that I work at now on the edge was right there. It's a draft house. And I just, I never seen it before, but I saw the sign out there, you know, draft house and a restaurant. I was like, ooh, draft house. I could go in there and have a beer. And then like right next door is the AA hall, or the AA meeting room. And I was like, I could go have a beer, or I could go have a meeting. What should I do? And I parked the car, and I got out of the car, and I just kind of stood there looking at both the signs for a minute. And I went into Crossroads, and had my first AA meeting. And that's not my first time in AA. I back in 2002, I was introduced to it back in California. And I had a month shy of being 4 years sober, and then I went back out.
Yeah.
And but this has been like completely different. I work the steps. I have a sponsor. I did my 4-step, which is what hung me up before. And I did the whole inventory and sharing it with her. And I did my inventory, and that was my 4-step. And then I did my 5th step, where I went over my inventory with my sponsor. And then I did Freedom 421 here at church.
Yep.
And that Freedom 421 had like completely just wrecked me. Like, it just flipped my world upside down. I walked through a lot of unforgiveness that I had with my dad, with Michael, with my son's father, just like all these things. It just like, I just got washed clean, basically. And my life has been completely different ever since. I chair the Wednesday night meeting in my meeting hall. I go to the jail on Tuesday nights, and I bring the meeting in to the people, to the women in the jail.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just down the road here?
Yeah, just right across the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vincent County.
Yeah.
So awesome. I was just there on Tuesday. So yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, me and a couple of the ladies there, we bring the meeting to the girls there in the jail, and I'm supposed to hear from somebody. You know, 2 of them were supposed to get out today, and one of them was supposed to call me. So I haven't heard from her yet, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. But yeah, I go to meetings. I chair a meeting. Doing the jail thing. I have a completely renewed relationship with my kiddos. I call him Dude, my son. Everyone else knows him as Jack. He was at my house today mowing my yard for me. And, my Mercy wants to have a relationship with me. She wants to hang out with me. I'm not that embarrassing mom. I didn't know that she hated my drinking and my smoking pot. Like, I didn't know that she hated it as much as she did, until I stopped. And she loathed it. She hated the smell of it. She hated seeing me drunk. And I wasn't like, falling down sloppy drunk or anything like that. I was just chilling, I was just listening to my music, having some beers, just chilling at the house, no big deal. I wasn't hanging out at bars or anything like that. But apparently I was annoying and maybe a little obnoxious, and she hated it. And I didn't realize that until I got sober. And we have birthday night the last Friday of every month, and this past weekend was birthday night at my meeting, and then Saturday night is a meeting I go to in called the Ray of Hope, and it's in Gun Barrel City. And so Friday night I went to my meeting and got my 1-year tokens. My son gave me my chip, actually. And he got up there and he spoke and gave a little speech. And they, gave me my chip. Mercy was there. And she refuses to go to, like, any of my meetings or anything. But she was there. And Bree, dude's wife. So the three of them went with me. And then on Saturday night, I went to the Ray of Hope and celebrated my birthday with them. And Mercy again went with me, and she was actually going to give me my chip there, but there's like 70 people in that meeting room, and she got really scared. She's like, I can't do it. Just have Melody do it. So my friend was there with us, and she gave me my chip there. But yeah, so
awesome.
It's been amazing.
Tracy, how has it changed in that year, your relationship with God? Like,
oh wow,
how has that changed?
It's been just pivotal in my life. Like I have a deeper relationship with God than I ever have. That's what's keeping me sober. That's what's keeping me sane. Because it's been quite a ride. It hasn't been an easy year.
Yeah.
It definitely hasn't. And it hasn't been hasn't been an easy 48 years. My life has always been chaos, but I have peace now. And that's what it's been for me, is just peace.
Wow.
Yeah. And because I've never felt at peace with anything. I've always just felt like in turmoil and just in chaos and just spinning my wheels.
When did you first start to feel peace?
When I hit my knees on June 22nd of 2024.
When she surrendered.
Mm-hmm. When I surrendered.
So Absolutely. You're telling me there's a correlation between surrender and peace?
Absolutely.
And then she made the commitment after she surrendered to do the baby steps and to walk it out. Mm-hmm. And that's where people get hung up at. I surrendered. It's done. No. And I feel like that's where a lot of people, give up at, is they don't want to take those baby steps. No, you got
to take those baby steps. Just like Bob did. And what about Bob? Baby steps to the elevator.
That's right. What about Bob? That's our first "What About Bob" reference on the podcast. Ever.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I appreciate it. No, David wouldn't know.
He's too young.
So, but yeah, that's essential. That's why, the first time I went through AA, I didn't have a relationship with God. I didn't, they talk about the higher power, but it's a spiritual program, and, they talk about God in the big book. But they always say a God of your understanding. And, cause a lot of people get hung up on the whole God thing. If I have to believe in God, I don't want to be sober. I'm not going to do this program. I'm not going to do any of it. But it's not like that. They say it's a God of your understanding. Well, my God is Jesus.
Amen.
And that's the God of my understanding. And, I didn't have a relationship with God at the time. I wasn't working steps. I had a sponsor, but we just hung out and talked. We never, when I got to my 4th step, I just kind of hit the brakes, and I was like, I'm not going to do this. I don't need to, expose all my dirt to anybody and, all that kind of stuff. But another thing that I did, because right now I'm on my 9th step. I did the amends thing, like making amends with people, and my big amends was with my son's father, and that was like huge. Like I I remember I was scared. I didn't want to have to do it, but I wanted to do it. I needed to be set free.
Yeah.
They always say that, forgiveness is for you, not the other person. And there's so much truth in that. Once I learned to forgive Michael, who is Mercy's dad, once I learned to forgive my own father, once I learned to forgive Caleb, my son's father, I'm not supposed to say his name.
That's all right.
Once I forgave all these people, I got set free.
Yeah.
And so anyways, forgiveness is key to everything. And,
Yeah.
so yeah.
So many people live in that prison of unforgiveness, right?
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it just keeps us shackled, right? Like it just keeps us bound to the past and to addiction and whatever ugly form it takes.
That unforgiveness always seems to stem into incredible pain, and then the incredible desire to numb the pain, and then shame that comes along with numbing the pain, right back into the vicious circle. It's just it's crazy to watch it. But God wants us delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it has. It's been an amazing journey. Having a relationship with God, having a relationship with my kids. I have an amazing sponsor. I'm building friendships with people. You'd asked about friendships in the beginning of our conversation, and I finally, when I go to a meeting, I feel like I belong. When I come to Radiant, I feel like I belong. I'm belonging. Thank you.
Yeah,
You do, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm finally finding like acceptance and I'm believing in myself. That's something I never did before. I had like zero self-esteem, zero self-confidence, and I see myself as like, as a child of God now, which is something, I never thought that I was worthy of anything.
So you're finding identity in God.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. That was something that I learned in the Freedom 421 is, that I am a child of God, and, that he sees me as, as his own, and, he sees me with worth and value, and, he sees me, and, for the longest time, I felt so unworthy and just so dirty and ashamed and, just gross, really. And, I can see myself as a human being now, as a mother, as an employee, as a daughter, as a friend, and, and I'm building relationships now, and that's, it's a beautiful thing, it really is. I was sharing last night in my meeting, about, how I feel accepted and how I feel like I belong somewhere finally.
Yeah.
And I never felt like that for a really long time.
That's incredible.
Well, first of all, I want to say, appreciate you coming on. It's for the viewers that don't know, it's Thursday. It's I don't even know what time it is now. It's like 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
But I just want to say I'm proud of you, like for taking those steps, and that's just amazing. So
thank you.
Also, I want you to give the viewers, I always point out, I feel like there's always one person listening that could really like be touched by what you're saying. So can you give that viewer just something, a little bit of hope, on anything?
Advice, hope,
Advice,
insight.
hope.
If you were talking to yourself 15 years ago, what would you say to yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Just give it to God. Just give it all to God, and believe in yourself. 15 years ago, I'm trying to do the math in my head, how old I was at that time. I'm 48 now. So that would have been what, 33. So I was like, just before I had Mercy. And yeah, that was, my 30s and 40s. Well, my 30s were kind of tough years for me. And, I remember on my 30th birthday, actually, like just breaking down. And, I had just barely moved back to Texas. Well, not back, but moved to Texas. I had no job. I had no car. I was living with my mom. I had nothing. I came here with nothing. And I just was sitting at the counter at my mom's house and just broke down and started crying. I was like, I'm such a failure. I'm 30 years old and I have nothing. And my son looked at me. He's like, well, you got me, Mom.
Oh.
And I just like, wrecked me. And I just started crying even harder. I was like, I know. And I feel like such a horrible parent. And, but I mean, he's always been absolutely just precious. And, that's just, just see yourself as a child of God, I mean, just see yourself as, somebody that has worth, cause like I said, I've never felt like that before. I always just felt like just unwanted.
So it took you 48 years basically to see that.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So if you could look back and go, man, if I'd have done this a little sooner, maybe what would that be?
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Would it be surrender? Would it be surrender sooner?
Absolutely, surrender.
But I also
sooner.
feel like with like what you said, it's also never too late.
No, never.
And I feel like a lot of people get hold up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, yeah.
I'm too far gone.
I'm too far gone. It's just
We're just gonna do this forever.
yeah.
That was something I learned the first time I was in AA. Was that somebody told me one time it's never too late to start again. Mm-hmm. And it's never too late to start again. I'm 40. I just turned 48 the beginning of this month, or the beginning of June rather, a month ago tomorrow. And yeah, I'm 48 years old and I'm a baby. I'm still a little baby.
Oh, there's lots of areas I'm probably a much bigger baby. Just ask Dawn. Well, thanks so
Tracy,
much for coming on, and thanks for bearing it all. And
Thanks
so
for being vulnerable.
being honest.
Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Proud of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Super proud.
Thank you.
You've been around here a long time. I say a long time. And to hear your story, I knew pieces and parts of it, but
Yeah.
to hear your story, to see your surrender to God, the work God's done in your life, this is the best.
And once
you.
you surrender to make steps of action,
Yep.
that's always a hard thing, but it's a really beautiful thing to see. And I love Mercy. I love her like my own. She's in her youth, and she's awesome.
She's amazing. She is something special. That is for sure. I mean, she is just a true, both of my kiddos are just absolute gifts from God. I mean, my son, and I know we're trying to wrap up here, but when I found out I was pregnant with him, that was the first time in my life that I actually had a concept that there was God. I was in the hospital and I got to see his heartbeat for the first time. And when I got to see and hear that, it was just oh my gosh, there's something bigger out there than me.
Yeah. This doesn't just happen.
I didn't do this by myself. So he, my son is really what saved my life to begin with. And showed me that, gave me some sort of concept of God. And Mercy is just an absolute miracle. She is so special. She is so special. So she's an absolute joy.
I think I'm just supposed to tell you, there's really good days ahead for you.
Oh, thank you.
For your family, but also just you personally.
Oh, wow.
There are really, really good things that God has prepared and planned for you, moving forward.
Thank you.
It's good now. Awesome. But God's got some really cool things for you.
I can't
Amen.
wait.
Amen.
I can't.
Appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Tracy.
Absolutely.